And we are live. Hi and welcome to PGMAB's YouTube channel. And tonight you've got myself and Gordon.
Hello.
And we are going to discuss Season 1 of Eureka. We did try this last week, but due to technical difficulties and the fact that I'm a diddy, we had zero sound at my end. And we're going to try it again. So last week I spent nearly an hour talking to myself on camera.
So that's quite a short blast, and usually you do it for much longer than that.
Yeah, but what can I say? So we now have sound, and I'm just hoping we still have sound after the fact. But
What?
I made sure my mic is on this time.
What?
So I did. Aye, I can tell you're saying what, but my mic is actually showing it's flashing. I'd actually switched my mic off for some reason last time.
What?
Anywho, shut up, that's going to get annoying. Really annoying.
Already has. Sorry.
Aye. So, I have rewatched Eureka 3 times, and it definitely is growing on me. The first walk through, it was a bit, Second one was getting a bit better, and I've got certain episodes I thought I quite enjoyed more than others. And then the third pass, the ones that I enjoyed, just found them funnier. Maybe it's because I've seen them and I was expecting the humour a bit more.
No, yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear that because for myself, as I said last week, that no one heard, obviously.
Your side was fine. It was
so
my
they heard
side.
me. Oh, right.
Oh, they heard you, but as soon as you left, I spent an hour
talking to yourself.
Talking to myself.
Dear, that's pretty bad. Well, I'll presume that people didn't just stick around to listen to
I'm assuming not,
conversation.
Because it was pure blank silence at my side.
Oh well. That's you. To be fair, as a lecturer, I'm kind of used to that. So
been there, done that.
No, like full disclosure. So Eureka for me is a very special show. I certainly wouldn't say it's the best science fiction show on the planet by any means, but for me personally, I do really like it, and it's definitely up there in the top 3 for me anyway. That's for sure. And season 1, I think if I was looking at season 1 objectively as an overall. It is a bit rocky. It's a bit bumpy. There are a few criticisms of it that I think that we can go through when we chat about today. But overall, the humor got me pretty good. The characters, I really enjoy the characters. Jack. So my 2 favorites are Henry and Carter. Straight off the bat, I like them throughout the entire series. So, what characters do you like the most?
Well, the 2 characters I liked from the very beginning were Lupo and Henry. Joe Lupo and Henry. The more interesting characters. There was a couple of characters I did not like from the start. One of them you're meant not to like.
Yeah.
The psychologist, whatever other thing maybe was from D-Dot, from the very first appearance, I did not like her character.
Beverly.
And Beverly. And the other one I didn't like was Fargo. But I suppose disclosure was Fargo was the only character I knew of because I'm a big fan of Warehouse 13 and they're on the same universe and there's a couple of crossovers. So from that side, I found that I didn't like Fargo even then. In the first season, there was nothing on him about him that I found endearing or anything like that.
So the character I think is set up to be like that. It's interesting because he does change throughout the seasons, and in a later season he sort of, obviously no spoilers, right? But there's a much later episode where you sort of see he changes, and then it's a real moment of, oh, actually he's not a self-centered individual. Although, I mean, I think that's what he set up. So, do you mean you didn't like him in terms of he was too self-centered, or you just didn't like the character he was playing, or did you think he was acted poorly?
I just didn't like the character.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the actor or if he played him well or whatever. It was actually the character.
Okay.
I'm aware of characters like that because you look at Buffy. The first introduction of Wesley in Buffy, he was a whiny librarian, and through the process from Buffy into Angel, his character changed and he became a badass, very good character.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, some characters are designed that way. They're meant to be the whiny, they're meant to be the moany, they're meant to be, I'm the glue that holds everything together, you should like me, but nobody does type character, which obviously he said that within the season 1.
I like what I must admit, what I do like about Fargo actually is that's how he sees himself. Obviously, he's not, right, but he wants to be that character, which is quite. I mean, from my point of view, is a bit endearing.
Yeah,
I certainly wouldn't say I'd want him as a friend, like in real life, because he does seem like a horrible human being, but
don't we all?
Well, that's certainly true. Yeah. So let's get onto the episodes then. So
yes,
the pilot episode.
Right, before we start, I just want to actually put a bit of background because of the things that have changed in the channel.
Mm-hmm.
We are now using StreamYard, the free version. Hence the reason why you've got the logo up in the top corner. That one or that one, I can't remember. Anyway, we're using StreamYard now, and we're obviously still using OBS, and we've both learned how to link OBS in. So hopefully, if we need to show something, we can a bit better with StreamYard. As I go on, I might actually do what I did with the OBS and the video editor and purchase it rather than use this cheaper one. However, at the moment, want to see how it goes, see if it makes it a bit easier. Yeah, and hopefully the setups are going to be more streamlined.
I can do this.
So, yes.
Wow, look at that. Isn't that cool? I made myself really small in the background, and I can go back again. Whoa, look at that.
Oh, well, I've actually set it up different ways. So if I need to show, I can actually go straight on so I can show a bit of the movie. I can flick back, or if I want to and take myself right out, I can do that. Obviously, with StreamYard, it's actually... StreamYard is actually more...
User-friendly,
I suppose. OBS is actually quite a good app for a free app, and it allows you to do so much. But I think for this, like, for instance, I just needed to go into StreamYard, create a broadcast and go. Whereas in YouTube, if I'm using that with OBS, I have to do cuts and pastes and set it all up so the two of them are talking to each other. Sure. Whereas with StreamYard, it allows YouTube, OBS, and StreamYard all to work together with just a simple one setup. You've set it up, away you go.
You know why I've started using it? For lecturing online. So that black screen, I've taken the other cam off, but I'm doing like so when I do the electrical engineering stuff, I can push the OBS and it instantly transitions to the other camera, so I can like show the wiring. So what's really smashing about this is I got a plugin that now lets me put the output to zoom, so I can actually use OBS to control the different cameras and do it to zoom. And I can also broadcast it straight to YouTube. So now I don't even need to upload it to YouTube. I can just live stream it onto YouTube, and then
which is perfect. And it's once you've live streamed it up there. Also, the aspect of it for yes, we can record it, whatever via. I'm actually hoping this is actually running. Believe it or not, I've just realised that OBS is not even set to streaming, which I normally have to do. So I've not even checked to see online to see if we're actually streaming.
It says live.
It does say live, and I can see we're on it, and I want to actually turn the sound up. So I'm going to mute my mic for 2 seconds while I do this. Right, hold on.
Well, what I'll do is I'll continue talking.
My mic for 2 seconds while I do this.
And get loads of feedback.
Hold on. And I'm back, and I know it's live, and I've got sound because I checked it on my iPad. So yes, I'm the one concurrent. I'm professional. If you see one concurrent viewer, that's me.
Well, up from one from last week.
Well, that's true, but it also shows that StreamYard is actually quite good because I didn't need to faff around by doing the copy and paste and linking it all in. StreamYard, it was simple, straightforward, and I think StreamYard allows if we decided that we wanted to expand it a bit and have somebody else to come in and talk about it. We can have, I think it's up to 6. You can have 10 in a queue, but 6 on screen at the one time.
Oh, that's good.
So it allows a bit more flexibility, and obviously if I'm doing just myself and doing it, I'm unlikely to use StreamYard unless I'm using something on my screen and I want to display it that way. Like, for instance, I'm thinking about doing Magic while I'm doing a review of something on my Todd, just sitting playing Magic Arena and actually broadcasting that so people can watch Arena while I'm talking about something. So because I do Magic and I do TV reviews, I can bring it to it like that. Well, so that's the way I was thinking about it.
Well, the good thing is when Nerderotic obviously hears of your channel and is desperate to do a stream with you, you can have both you guys on the stream together. I mean, it's just a matter of days now, really.
Now, wouldn't that be lovely? Even though I'm up to nine subscribers.
That's amazing, though. That's quite impressive. I mean, it must have taken you quite a while to make those 9 accounts.
It did. It took me longer to actually do the 9 accounts than it was to do a StreamYard.
I know.
At least anyway. I know 3 of the accounts. I know 4 of the accounts, actually. One's my
Leo,
friend. You, Leo, Rory, and one of my friend Vicky. And hopefully some family members have subscribed as well, but there's at least 3 that I don't know. They're just random subscribers. So thank you very much, guys. It's great. And anyway, so we'll go back. Season 1, episode 1, Eureka. That's what we're here to talk about.
Absolutely.
So what were you going to say before I interrupted you, before I started talking about me and my channel?
I was just asking you what you enjoyed, I think, about season episode 1. Episode
1. See, I've got a theory with programs starting out and stuff like that. Episode 1 is always the setup, the premise. Episode 2 is introduce the characters, and episode 3 bring them together. Very rarely, even if I don't like something, I'll still watch the first 3 episodes because I know sometimes an episode they'll throw you into it, you're not entirely sure what's happening, and you're just wanting to they're just wanting to show you this is what it's about. Now you know what it's about. Here are the characters that are going to be involved in it. And 3, here's the characters doing the thing. I was the same with Almighty Johnson's when I watched that. But I got to the 3rd episode and I didn't get into it. My friend told me to keep going until I hit the 5th episode. And as soon as I hit the 5th episode, it caught me and I couldn't go against it. It was fantastic. So minimum, I always do 3 episodes. First episode, for the premise of it, I thought a bit slow, but all in all, it introduced you to the town, Eureka. It introduced you to the type of people in the town. It sort of gave you a wee bit with the characters because typical with a pilot, not all characters may continue, which we obviously one of them didn't.
Yeah,
from episode Stark came in, but you had I can't remember who he was.
I was going to say his name wasn't Stark. It was just a different actor. It was actually a different.
It was a different actor, and different character.
That's right. Aye.
So it was.
I'm just looking them up actually.
He's been in a few things. I have seen him in a number of things. I thought he might have actually been better because I thought his characterization was a wee bit more, whereas the new guy is sort of, to me, he's like a stuffed shirt. He's meant to be this scientist, but he's very stuffed shirtish. You know what I mean? Whereas the original guy was the scientist, and he just seemed to be a bit more flaky. So I thought he was a better character, and I quite enjoyed him initially. The part with the Japanese samurai, the VR thing, I thought was a bit...
Not like that?
No, I didn't see the point in it. It was literally... If the character stayed and they were going to progress it a bit more, I could understand it. But for a pilot, I didn't see the point in it. It just seemed to be a bit of, let's show you technology to make it look real, but it's actually technology type thing.
I think I kind of thought that was part of the point. It was showing off, like, it was trying to show off what Eureka was, which was this brilliant, super advanced place, and you've got like all this kind of stuff. And what I thought it was maybe trying to do is they were trying to show off. I guess because it was a pilot, maybe they didn't know if they were going to stick with him as the head of GD or not. I'd imagine it wasn't written in with that, so presumably that was almost setting it up to show him off as, I don't know, maybe a bit reaching further than he's grasped, sort of thing.
Yes, you know? I thought that's the only thing I must admit. If he'd stayed, it might have actually been a lot better, but because he was only there for the pilot, it just seemed to be a dead end. However, I thought his character was a lot better. So
Interesting. Greg German is his name, by the way.
Aye, I'm trying to remember what else he's been in. He's been in loads of stuff. I recognise his face. I know he's been in things like he's been bit parts in things like CSI, stuff like that. But he's been in something. He was actually
main character. I can read you off his IMDb if you like, just a few of them. He's been in Greg's Anatomy as one of the doctors. Yeah.
I never watched Greg's Anatomy, so I wouldn't have recognised him from that. But I know the program.
Curb Your Enthusiasm, Station 19. That's a spin-off of, I guess, Greg's Anatomy. Foster Boy, Kevin Hart's Guide to Black History.
Yeah.
Friends from College, $1. Ned and Stacy, Billy Boy, Redliners, Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I've seen that, but didn't really like that, but I've seen him in that. But he is a face I recognised, and I think his characterisation of the guy was quite good. Yeah. I think he would have been a better in it, but I must admit, I do like seeing people I recognise in TV shows. I'm not a big, I recognise him and I know his name type thing. I recognise somebody and it reminds me of the programmes, like, for instance, the Colin Ferguson, the one that plays Jack. He was in the American version of Coupling. He played Patrick. The UK version of Coupling is fantastic. The first 3 seasons only. After the 3rd season, it went downhill quite spectacularly. Season 4 was bad. However, they shoved everything into 1 season in America and it was dire because the humour didn't go across very well. And I suppose it's the typical American humour's great if you're watching American shows. I think English humour is great if you're watching English shows, but English humour doesn't go well when you're watching an American show, and American humour doesn't go well when you're watching an English show. Give you 2 examples of that. Well, Coupling was one. That was an American version of the UK one. The Office seemed to work, but the difference with The Office was they didn't try and just bring it across.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
They customised it.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, the Office, I think, worked because they changed the jokes and they changed the humour.
Yes,
I mean the premise was the same.
They took the premise, and that was all they took. They didn't take any, but you went the other way, where you had the 70s show. They brought it over to the UK. I think it was 1 season, but I don't even think they showed the whole season. I remember only ever seeing 1 or 2, one episode, especially the pilot, word for word, and dire.
It's
I
interesting.
think they called it "Those Were the Days."
It's interesting when you look at like comedy history. There seemed to be like a real focus on British comedy being sort of like good 80s, 70s, 80s, trail off of the 90s. And nowadays, if you look at the majority of humor that comes out, it's all American. Like, Brooklyn Nine-Nine is one of the best shows. I mean, like, the best examples of comedy shows, I suppose The Office. The American Office, I think, in some ways took over the British Office.
See, I never watched either.
Neither did I, but I was just thinking about in terms of ratings and people watches and stuff. Yeah,
but I think the American Office had the similar idea with, or a similar problem. When Ricky Gervais wanted to finish it, he finished it, end of story. Whereas in America, when the 40-year-old virgin, I can't remember his name,
I know Stephen
left it.
Something
like that. When he left it, they continued it on. And that's when it basically went downhill. And it was to do with the fact that they tried to continue something on where it worked in that situation. A lot of programs like that, certain things happened. Like that 70s show did the same idea. Season 8 changed because a couple of the main character left and a couple of other characters left, and they tried to continue it, and it was dire. So with that, seeing characters in a program that which I enjoyed, I like coupling. The American one was dire, but it was good to see the yin to the British yang, as it were. How they did this comedies. There was some things that worked because they did change it, because what was done in the UK one would not have worked in the American one, and they changed it. And those ones they did change worked very well. And he played Patrick in it. Wasn't as good as the guy played Patrick in the UK one, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but we'll ignore that. So,
anyway, shall we back to episode 1? So, I suppose we should do a wee run through of it.
Basically, he gets. Well, so you're talking about it's a federal marshal.
So he's a marshal, right? And marshals, for those that don't know, are basically borderless in America. They're one of the only forces that can go across states. And he's transporting a prisoner who also you later discover Zoe is his daughter. And she plays a really good character, actually. I think.
I thought she was actually quite good. I must admit. I
didn't like her in the start. But then I'm not really a fan of kids in shows, to be honest, at all. Younger people, I never really enjoy it. I think their acting's crap.
you would hate Erie, Indiana.
Yeah, no, not really.
It's basically it's a kids. It's full of kids, and it's basically
it just doesn't do it for me, unfortunately. But so anyway, so transporting across America, and then they have an accident. By chance, they run into themselves, literally, which never I don't think that actually gets explained, actually, but they run into themselves.
Did.
Oh wait, what was it? What was that now?
They drove in, and as they drove in, a car passed them in their way, its way out, and it was them, and she was waving. And then when they were leaving, she knew they were going. It's because the episode 1 was all to do with time dilation.
Was that what it was?
Aye, because remember. They didn't actually state that was the thing, but remember the bits where the guy, part of his caravan disappeared, and they found it in the food, and they says it was time dilation. What it was doing is that stopped in time, and the Earth continued to move, so it's blinked out, and then later appeared further down the road, whatever, because it blinked out for a fraction of a second, and the Earth had moved, and that's where it had ended up.
But
I know, but they were implying that it's all to do with the time dilation, and it was messing with time.
Maybe. Okay.
So they didn't actually say that's what it was, but because that was a machine, it was messing around with time.
You know what I thought they would have done, and I kind of wish they had done in the later, maybe even the later season, is actually had that scene where they're driving it. Explain what was behind it, but have the scene where it's like, right, to make sure that everything goes according to plan, you and Zoe have to drive out at this exact time and see yourselves. And remember, Zoe, you have to wave to the other car. Otherwise, history will unravel before our very eyes. And I thought that would be a very lovely throwback to the pilot. But it never happened.
I think they sort of met as they were driving out of town. She knew and she was waving because she was expecting to see the car.
I remember that bit. I don't remember that. I'll have to watch it again, but I don't recall seeing that bit.
Well, the thing is, I've got it here, all tuned up. So all I need to do is go to the pilot.
Yeah, I'll be right at the end, then, won't it?
Yeah.
Maybe it's a different cut. Maybe the version I've got is different. Incidentally, the DVD case you can see on screen here is the version of the screen, or it's the version of the DVDs that I have. There we go.
Aye. I've not got those ones, I must admit. But I've just got the bit where he's just leaving.
I think someone's put some chat up, by the way.
Yes, McPuffin Muffin. How long has it been since I saw the show?
It was a long time since I saw the show. Yeah, I mean, when I got it, I bought it nearly a decade ago, probably. When I first got these DVDs, I'm rewatching them. Crazy.
They've basically this last week was the first time I watched it. I did watch a pilot years ago, but I never got into it, and the only thing I remembered was it was about a town and some guy had moved in and it was to discover it. I couldn't tell you who was in it, couldn't tell you anything about it except the fact it was called A Town Called Eureka, I think, at the time. So that was it. So I had never seen it up until this last couple of weeks because we were meant to be doing this review last week, but I messed up with my technology, Mr. IT man.
I was going to say, if only we had an IT specialist who could have rectified those problems for you.
Anyway. I'm saying nothing. I can't even see that part of the technology of the movie where they're moving out, they're driving out and waving. But
I think the bit you might be thinking about is there is a bit at the end of the episode when I think it's on the pilot where both Zoe and Carter are driving, but they don't drive out of town, and there's not a point where they're waving. Because I seem to remember specifically remembering or wishing at the time that was going to be a throwback later on. I thought it was such a missed opportunity. They never threw back to that and actually sort of showed you why they did that. I think it was just setting the premise of this as a really weird town where weird stuff is going on.
Yes, I think so. But I thought they had waved the part, but there wasn't. They started driving out and then it flicks to the psychologist. So it does. Yeah,
Mr. Puffin, you can see on the DVDs that I've got up on screen, it was called A Town Called Eureka, and you're quite right, they changed the name. I might go and grab the boxes I've got because you can see where they've changed it.
Aye. It's I thought the introductory episode of it was quite intriguing after being a bit older when I did see it. Obviously, when I watched it the first time, I was a lot younger. I was just under 50, so rather older.
60. What?
No, half and half. 55, I'll have you know.
You look good for a 40-year-old. No, never mind.
For an old guy. But
yeah, so like in the episode itself, though, I mean, the bits I liked most about it, I liked when they crashed the car. I think that's actually quite funny. And
yes.
I'm a big fan of all that kind of humor. I'm a huge fan of. So like when he steps out the car and straight down the side.
Yes. The only thing I don't like is when they telegraph it because it's things like, be careful, I will, you know something's going to happen.
Of course, yeah.
And it's that type of thing. And I suppose they played into that later on with, wait for it, because he's going to come back in because he doesn't know where he's going. So, yes, it was a case of showing him as a bit headstrong and I'll just go ahead and do it. But I must admit, the first one, I liked Jim Taggart. Matt Frewer.
Matt Frewer, yeah.
Mr. Max Headroom himself.
So Matt Frewer is, Jim Taggart is this eccentric, for the people who have not seen it, maybe.
Is an eccentric Australian.
Who's, I want to say zookeeper, but I guess not really. He's more
what was it? He was
I was actually going to say gynecologist, but I still
it's a zoologist or an anthropologist.
No, that's humans. Anthropology is humans. Just a veterinarian. Well, he is a vet, actually.
He's meant to be. He comes across as if he's a big game hunter.
Yeah.
Vet. Naturist.
The game hunter bit was kind of. Oh yeah, he is a naturist. Yeah, the game hunter stuff kind of struck me as weird because, like, it almost seemed very diametric. Like you wouldn't have someone who loves animals so much, presumably, who also then hunts them as much. But then I suppose they never say it never says that he explicitly hunts them.
It just seemed to be the dog. It seemed to be the dog.
Yeah. Well, actually, yeah, no, he does hunt the dog. But then I don't know, maybe it's catch and release sort of thing. So who knows? Anyway, but he's a good character. Yeah.
He's a good character, and it's a funny character. And then you had obviously the introduction to Joe.
Yeah,
Joe Lupo. And I did like her character from the very beginning. Just so matter of fact, and you could actually just imagine, yes, because sometimes you get someone in a position where they're meant to be this tough, badass, or they may male, female, doesn't matter, and they're sitting there fiddling about with weapons and stuff like that, and you're sitting there thinking, they have got zero idea what they're doing. They're just going through the motions as if this is what you're meant to do. But you could just see her, and it looked as if, she could strip that gun right down and put it all back together, probably blindfolded as well. It looks like, A, she either knew what she was doing, or B, she learned
for the role.
Properly for the role. But either way, you didn't, sometimes in programs, especially when you've got military ones, they always portray certain military types as overachievers and stuff like that. She just actually came across as, she could do that. You know what I mean? Just the fact is, when he walks in and she goes, gun, bang! It's just, yes, you can imagine that happening. And it didn't. It was nothing to do with power. It was just the way she knew how to do it. So it wasn't a case of sometimes you get somebody who'll go in and grab somebody and push them up against the wall, and the person's like built like a brick and they're lifting them off the ground, and you're sitting there thinking, why don't they just push because of the amount of strength they've got? It's just the technique she used.
Well,
I thought that was quite good.
So there's two things there. One, I suppose, given my background, one thing that always stands out to me in any scene where that's the case is when someone is doing any kind of engineering work or like welding or cutting. I don't know why now, but I can't unsee it. So as soon as I see someone doing like anything like welding's a good one because they always do it wrong. It's like I've never seen a scene in a movie where it's been done right. Like grinding as well, they're always like just doing this sort of nah. It's like, what are you doing? That's not how you use it. Anyway, on that scene you mentioned when Jack comes in and she does like the armbar thing and puts him on the ground. That I think is one of the first. Well, no, that is one of the scenes that I suppose you could take that shows why I like Jack Carter so much, or the actor, and that's because every time he does, he's so visual in all of his acting, and Colin Ferguson. He's so visual, so like when his face is planted into the ground, he's like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's just hilarious. Like he plays it so well. It's like his nose is bent over. It just looks hilarious, and he does that. A lot of the scenes he does. He's very, I don't know. He's very visual. He's very expressive. He's very committed to the role. We might say more than a lot of other actors. Because like other actors, they might just sort of do the whole, my face is up, like this is here. No, Ferguson's is like, no, it's right in there. It's quite funny. Yeah, and he does that all the time.
And I think it's just, I suppose, the interaction between him and Joe were good, because it wasn't your typical, you're the deputy, I'm the sheriff, you do what I'm saying. Aye, right. Okay, I'm not going to push it. That type of thing. It was a case of nothing to do with male, female, boss thing. It was a case of, I'm the boss, but I might be scared of you. And it was that aspect of it. It just gave the impression that you've got her, she's got another side to her personality, which is she seems to constantly try and hide. And it's the girly side that in another episode comes out. But when she's talking about that with Zoe, it doesn't even seem as if the two parts just don't mesh. It just seems a case of one is your primary and one is your secondary, because it didn't seem as if they were trying to actually say she's like this and she's like this and the two of them don't match. They did, because, and I think it was the way Eureka Cerra,
Cerra.
The way she portrayed it, she did it very well. She didn't look as if she was out of her depth doing the tough guy stuff, but she didn't look out of her depth being the feminine type. So she messed. A very good actress. She could have been like that in real life. She could still be feminine and tough. You don't need to be one or the other. But they were sort of implying these two sides of her, but they worked together. So because, and I thought it was because of the way she acted it. I thought I was definitely one of the best.
She played it very naturally. I think was a good way. So in terms of it didn't seem forced. Like when she transitions from badass ex special forces through to more of a soft role, it's fine. I think what works about that is that she plays it very confidently, and that's the underlying thing that sits in both sides of that role, is that she's confident in both roles. What would have messed it up and made it weird is if she was like this special forces, really confident, strong, brave, blah, blah, and then flips to the soft side and suddenly becomes very insecure and unsure about herself and all that kind of stuff. That would have been very weird. The fact that she's confident in both is I think, what gives it that natural flow.
I think it also, as you said, the natural flow, and I think it's because that is natural. It's when you get a lot of these programs, they try and make it as if it's unnatural. Whereas just because she's female doesn't mean she can't be a badass. But it's also just because she's military doesn't mean she can't be feminine. Whereas you look at a lot of programs nowadays, it's a case of it's one or the other. No,
well, they like to simplify it, don't they?
They do like to simplify it. Whereas that one, it was a very complex character and a very well written and a very well acted character. And I think it's because of the way she acted right at the very beginning with Jack, and then with Zoe as well. It was the yin and yang, and it made her a proper character, a person you could. Yes, I don't know anybody who's military like that type, because I know a few military people, but the females I know are in the military have been in either medical or they were flight. Like my cousin was in the RAF. So hers was more the technical side of the flight. So it's not like you had the special forces type of people. I know one or two people who have been in special forces here, but it's not the same because you didn't have that yin and yang. And I think because of that, as outsiders, as it were, we don't know. We don't know the training and stuff like that, because I've never been in the army. Nearest I've been to the army was my grandfather. Been in the army. My father was in the army. My cousins, my uncles, RAF or Navy and stuff like that. But I've never been in it. So I don't know those types.
No, I mean, I couldn't comment on that either. I mean, I've met a few people like that, and I always remember a Tom Clancy line from Rainbow Six, which is I know that sounds very cliche to say that, but I remember in one of the lines he writes something along the lines of it's like a quiet intensity behind the eyes. And I read that as like a 16-year-old or something. You read the book, you're like, that's fine. And I actually met a former Special Forces guy, and I knew exactly what that line meant. Like,
there's
a quiet intensity right
behind
that guy's eyes.
Aye, he'll be laughing and joking with you and letting you laugh and joke back until you go over the line. Then you'll know where that line you stepped or how far back it was.
Anyway, yeah, that's what I was going to say. So for the Joe Lupo one, I thought it set up the relationship between Carter and her very, very well. Obviously,
I think so as well.
There's the chip is on Lupo's shoulder that she didn't get the job, right?
Yeah.
She thinks she should have been the sheriff. I suppose it is an interesting one because, like, when I look at that, it's like there is a bit of a confusion in the show because, like, she is so experienced and in a variety of ways, right? And she's obviously, former Special Forces and and she's been the deputy for quite some time. It's weird that they wouldn't have made her the position, but I think they didn't is because she's like everyone else. She's brilliant, right?
Uh-huh.
And she is like her. She's like the, I guess, I don't know, genius too strong a word, but like she's really smart.
She's a specialist in her field.
Yes, that's exactly it. And I think, I guess the whole point of putting Carter in charge was that he wasn't.
Yeah, but I also thought it was because, remember, the sheriff?
Yeah.
He was the one that recommended him because they didn't call him Sheriff Cobb. It was Colonel. So to me, that implied that although she was the deputy, it was a military thing, and the deputy was her role in the town.
Oh no, I think I'm pretty sure. Well, I mean, I'm not even going to get into the debate of like, is it a military or is it a sheriff?
Well, do you remember the part when he gets seconded, as it were? Yeah, the two special agents turn up and give him, and he says, "Oh, recommended by, was it the colonel? The guy, the colonel, which was the guy that played the Russian colonel in SG-1."
No,
that's who he was. He thought it was, and they says no. It was either Colonel or Major Cobb. They said, which was the sheriff.
Yes, yeah. No, so, I remember that bit. No, but I think he was a former major. I don't think he was still a major in that.
See, I thought it was the way they were implying it as this. It was still the security was under the military.
I'm sure it is.
And they are the sheriff and deputy, but they have got their military ranking.
It would actually be interesting to see. Oh yeah, here we go. What are they doing? Do you believe you know by what they do and believe you know a. I'll need you. I'll wait for you to finish that sentence, and then we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Where was I? So yeah, it'd be interesting to know if in theory if Eureka was actually real. If Eureka or a town, like let's say, I don't know, like Area 51 or something like that. Well, actually no, Area 51 would be military police, so it would be MPs. So I suppose, if you were getting into the reality of it, I guess it would be a military police that would actually do it, but then I don't know if Eureka is a town. That's an interesting one. I don't know. Would there be a military force or would there be local sheriffs? I think it seems to be very much implied that they are sheriffs. Like
yes,
they're not like military police posing.
Yes, I think so. But it was just the way he gets promoted to sheriff, and it was just that throwaway line that you were recommended by Major Cobb rather than Sheriff Cobb. that to me sort of had the underlying military side to it. But
maybe it's both.
It could be. I think he's a federal agent, and as he says, it's as if he was getting demoted because he became a sheriff in a small town. But it's basically he didn't lose it. He got a promotion. He got more pay, but he was a sheriff. So it's almost like it was a promotion, but they slotted him into the post that they were filling. So he was still a marshal, but he was a sheriff now. But he didn't lose his security clearance. He got it increased. I
don't think he was. He's no longer a marshal. He was a marshal. In fact, I think he says that in a couple of episodes. He says, "Oh, I was a marshal."
Aye,
I was a U.S. marshal. You know?
Aye, he does use that. But the fact is, they says he was being posted, but he was promoted and all that. So you're assuming he's still in that post. But the only difference is he's now doing the job of sheriff. But he's still got all those things. But technically, he was a marshal. Now he's a sheriff, but he's still getting. It was under that promotion. He got promoted down.
I think the reason well, I mean, it's a bit of a joke, obviously, but I think the angle they're coming with when he says define promotion is that because as a marshal, he would go across the entirety of America, right? And they'd be chasing down criminals and people skipping bail and all the kind of stuff that marshals do and all that. And then to go from that to suddenly being, albeit a promotion, you're still the sheriff of a small town, like where, from his perspective, it's like, it's a small town where really, they've got GD and all that, but there's nothing going on. It would be a bit like, say, it's a bit like Hot Fuzz, right? You're the top sergeant in London Metropolitan, and you're part of SO19 and you're doing all your armed response stuff, and then suddenly you get promoted to what was it? Well, it wasn't Sheffield. I can't remember the name of the made-up town.
I know. I can't remember the thing, but I know what you're talking about. But he's suddenly down in this wee village.
Oh yeah. I mean, McPuffin. Yeah, absolutely. You know, like, writers always need to try and convey a lot about a character very quickly, and
they do stereotype a lot. It's the same as you said, like engineers. An engineer's got to be welding or doing this and doing that, whereas the people who are doing it very rarely not. It's the same as when I'm watching something in IT and they're going, and all these screens are popping up, and you're sitting there thinking, "Ever seen one of these? A mouse? That's what they use nowadays." And it's things like that. And it's a lot of writers stereotype it because most of the writers don't know anything about the military apart from anything else. You look at SG1. SG1, they were very happy because the writers actually wrote it very well for a military organisation.
They had military advisors in it.
Yes,
they did actually for SG1, yeah. But I wonder if they did. Well, I guess not for Eureka. Well, nah, they wouldn't have bothered with Eureka.
They wouldn't have bothered because they just needed, as McPuffin says, is the stereotype it to get the information and make it. I can't even pronounce that. I can't even say that because I've not got my glasses, so I'm sort of reading it a blur.
What was said? I wonder. Just as a side thought, but there is scenes where you see you see basically, I know they're not SWAT officers, but you see basically the special forces guys from GD, the security guys, and there are scenes in there where they're like stacking up outside doors and like making entries. Sometimes I do wonder if they would have got like trained people to do that. Just it's more of a curiosity than anything else, but because sometimes they will to do stuff.
Sometimes they'll have advisors on stage 4 to give something authenticity.
Yeah.
It's the same as anything else. You look at a medical program, they don't want somebody just going in and going, oh. No, you have to do it like this. So they'll have maybe somebody who's got, you know what I mean? Well, I'm dodgy. I can't do anything. So I have to actually, when I'm doing something, it doesn't look right. But what I'm saying is they'll have somewhere somebody who knows what they're doing, even if it's just a first aider saying, this is what you would do for that. I can't tell you about the more thing, but the basics I can tell you on. And it is the same. They stereotype a lot of things. So, like, you've got the bit later on with Lupo and they're trying to get out, and he's an army ranger, no problem, and he's standing there like that. He just looked out of place, as if somebody actually says this is what he should look like.
That thing is, that scene was set more to. I think that was set more to tell you about Joe than it was about that ranger.
That's what I'm saying. It just, but they didn't actually. It just looked.
But you don't obviously have the time when you're watching that scene. It's maybe 5 seconds, 6 seconds, or something. So you need, to the audience, you need to convey something really quickly, which is this guy is big, he's strong, and he still gets taken down by Lupo, which is giving you more information about Lupo as a character. You know?
Yes, but I think it was just the lead up to it, because even when they glanced over and he's standing, he just looked like as if the type of thing I would do, because I've seen it in the telly and this is how you're meant to stand. Whereas some other programs, you see ones and they look natural. And that's what it is. Sometimes somebody will stand in a particular way. You think, he's obviously done something like that before, because he's got a more natural look at or feel about him. Whereas you've got other ones who sort of, they're standing in a similar way, but it just looks sort of wrong somehow. I think that's what it is. That's what I was meaning about it, because it just sort of looked a wee bit off, and it's because of that.
He is I can't remember his name, but he appears in a few little things. He's usually like a support actor in a lot of stuff. That the guy that did that, I'm pretty sure
I've seen him in a few things, and he's usually either the big bulky jock type thing, or the.
I'd imagine his direction for that scene was something along the lines of
look tough.
It looked tough. Imagine what a Marine would look like, standing guard, and just like overemphasize it, just to be like, chest out and all that kind of stuff. I really don't think people stand with their chest out all day.
I know, but I thought the colonel's description was he could actually do this, and this. The gun is there for him being polite to let you know. That's he might be able to do that, but unless you've got a gun pointing in your face, that's him letting you know to be nice, because it is a gun pointing in your face is more in your face, as it were. Whereas he wouldn't have needed the gun to bring any of them down, as the colonel said. But the gun was there, him being polite by letting you know he could do that.
What was he called? It was like a force
recon.
Force recon, yeah, something like that. I thought it was quite. I thought the scene was quite funny. I quite enjoyed it. That's when the town's going into lockdown, because they don't know what's going to happen. Anyway, we've chatted.
That is the second episode, which is the finalisation of the first episode, because the first episode was the time dilation and the guy who died, and his wife gets murdered. And there's the wee boy who's left. That's how it finished. The guy who caused the things disappeared, so he died. That's what they thought.
I saw McPuffin's comment. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it. It's exactly what I was saying earlier about the engineering thing. When you know how, I suppose that's the curse of any TV show, right?
Yeah.
When you actually know how it should be done, it stands out to you like a sore thumb, and maybe that takes you out of it, I suppose. I mean, I guess it just depends who you are. Like for me, I can always switch that part off, and I'm okay with like when I see welding done badly, I can't just giggle at it, and it's like, well, that's funny, whatever. Let's not worry too much about it.
It's the same with me with IT. If I see all these bits where the guy's meant to be hacking and doing this, and this is doing this, and it's flash, I just think TV.
Yeah,
but I still do notice them that, and sitting there thinking, it just doesn't look right. Even things that I have got no knowledge of, it looks a wee bit off for some reason. And I think it is right with time limits and budget. It's not as if they're going to spend like the 300. Do you remember seeing the 300, the movie?
Yeah.
They took the ones who were playing the Spartans away for 6 months, and basically they drilled together They basically trained together. So when they did do those parts, they looked like a unit. Yes, they've not got the time to actually take somebody aside for 2-3 days, have 2 or 3 people working on it just to do stand there and look tough. I suppose that is, it's a constraint. Whereas later on, as if they had the one person who was just an advisor in general, who may be able to advise in a lot more. So I think he's right there. It's just a case of, it's funny when you know what it really looks like, and watching it, you can just have a wee chuckle thinking, really? It's the same as True Lies with Arnold Schwarzenegger. He walks in and turns on a PC and it's Windows 98 comes up, but it's the Apple Mac tune for startup. And you're sitting there thinking, really? But anyway, we digress. It is one of those things. You have to just chuckle at some things you don't know. And you notice them. And I'm one of those ones that do notice things. 99% of the time I can pass them, but it's not a case of I notice them and they don't bother me. Meant to say, the one thing that did annoy me, put me off a bit, I think, was the very first time they saw the wee boy when they came into town. Excuse me, where's the sheriff?
Oh, yeah.
It just seemed dead odd. Instead of saying, down that way, 2 blocks, that it was see that man standing right behind you, go past him for 2 blocks.
I think they were trying to portray him as
strange.
Well, yeah, strange. I mean, slightly autistic maybe, and that's maybe how that he was processing that information. Instead of, as you say, just go over that way, which would require you to, I suppose, appreciate someone else's perspective. You start playing to that little bit of it's like he's so brilliant, right? He's so brilliant. He can only think in terms of geometry or maths and things like that. And I guess that's how that's
I suppose so, but I would have thought as well is because there was where he was standing, there was basically, he was on a cross, right? So it was either go back the way, go down the way, go left or go right. If the guy was actually not standing right in front of him, say he was standing across the road, on the road at the other junction, then say that and go down that way, rather than actually having to give directions or whatever. It's a case of, see that man standing in the middle of the road, past him 2 blocks. Rather, that way I didn't need to say, you go down that road or you take the left. Because the guy was right behind him. And that's what I thought was just a wee bit off. It's because the guy was right behind him. It's not as if he was a wee bit in the distance and he was using that as a landmark, as it were. It's like turning around and saying, well, you go down to the shop and turn left because there's only one shop down there, and then if you get as far as the shop, you know where you are, rather than saying 2 blocks down. It's just that because the guy was right there, it just seemed off. And I think that's what it was. It's because there was no distance and there was no point of perspective. It's like saying from where he was instead of the guy, where the guy was maybe 10 feet in front of him. That's what was made. It just seemed a bit off because it's almost a case of, right, act weird. Well, that's no weird, but it'll do type thing. But I thought the introduction was good, and the second episode, whereas they were bringing the characterization of the characters in. So you obviously had was it Salli Whitfield or Salli
Richardson-Whitfield as Alison,
which you pointed out the last time we were talking was she was actually in Stargate as well.
She was. I think she was
Teal'c's wife, and was it family? It was his family. It was the one where he was getting Braytac. No Braytac. What was his son's name?
Oh, I can't. But yeah, they go back. Yeah, I think that is called
Ryak. Braytac's the old guy with the beard.
Aye.
And Ryak, he was about to get a gold.
So Teal'c goes back to save him, and that's where he
that's where he meets his wife, and that was her that played that. I didn't realise that until you pointed it out.
I can't remember if they changed actress because I think you see his wife more than once. I can't remember if it was the same. I can't remember if she played the wife the first time.
I think she may have. I think she's been in it. I can't remember if she's been in once or three times I think they appear, but I'm not entirely sure if it's the same person that plays the wife those three times.
Muffin, we I guess we kind of schedule it every Saturday, roughly. So Saturday evening. I'll leave that over to the host. That's his job to tell you.
I try and do something every Saturday. Sometimes we get delayed. Last week we messed around. I messed around. I was getting an echo, so while I was fixing the echo, I switched my mic off, which means you could only hear Gordon. And then when Gordon left, because he had to go, I spent an hour talking to myself and letting people watch me. But I usually try and do it every Saturday for a review of some description between 7:30 and 8 o'clock UK time. Obviously, McPuffin, I don't know where you are, so UK time.
GMT, yeah.
Aye.
Yeah, so just episode 2, though.
I thought episode 2 was a very good conclusion to episode 1.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I actually thought it was one of the weaker ones. I don't know if it's... I didn't really like the whole... I don't think I really liked the characters, honestly, for the guy that basically gets stuck in the time bubble and the wife. I didn't really...
I didn't like the wife. The wife was just sort of annoying. Liverpool, so there you go. We're up in Scotland, obviously. We're in Glasgow area. So, yeah, time-wise, you're talking about 7:30, 8 o'clock, and I usually try and put a notification up half hour before, just so it's there. But I want to do the whole 4 seasons of Eureka before we go back to Stargate.
5 seasons.
5 seasons of Eureka before we go back to Stargate, because Stargate is going to take us a long time.
So yeah, I mean, I didn't really like. I didn't really like. I suppose maybe that was how they're written. I liked the episode as a whole. Again, I didn't really like the little boy thing.
I thought it was a wee bit weak, but I'm saying as a conclusion to the pilot, it was a good way to do it, because sometimes they open the pilot and then you're talking about it could be this season or the next season or somewhere down the line. They'll do something that will sort of close that loop that they opened in the pilot. Whereas I thought the way they closed it very quickly, it was good, because they brought him in later on again. But the fact is they closed the loop and it was all about the ghost and the woman coming back to life and stuff like that, which I thought was a wee bit silly, the clone technology, because...
I liked that. I thought it was quite cool. I thought it was hilarious to find that he cloned his wife
and then split up with her. But the clone had all the memories, but had a different change of mind.
Yeah, that was a bit.
What I'm saying. That's why I thought it was a wee bit thing, maybe because she had all the memories, but for some reason, getting cloned changed their mind.
I mean, if you've got the technology to clone someone, presumably you have the technology to tweak their memories a wee bit or something like that, or. You definitely decided to come and live at Eureka with us. Yeah, that was definitely a thing, right? Or you clone the person and just don't let them know about the job offer. Because I think she had a job offer or something like that. So, like, presumably from the clone's point of view, she might as well have come over.
But the fact that she was nice and nice, come up to bed. So she was nice and nice, and it had a. So you could probably see where that came from, that she didn't want a kid initially, but she's been lumbered
with more family. Stereotyping there, I believe.
But then again, I thought the stereotyping of the fact is this woman came in, she didn't know anything about the kid, didn't want kids, but because it was stereotypical. If you see your child, you will know it's yours and you will want to keep him. Well, she's never given birth to him. You can be kind and generous and caring towards kids without thinking, I want to take them home with me.
There is a physiological reason for that. Well, there's a physiological argument for that, in that your brain is more wired to recognize features that it recognises. So like that's when you look at people, one of the first things you look for is familiar features to determine.
That's the human condition. The human condition is to look for patterns.
Well, I'll agree on that then. Yes,
it's basically you're looking for patterns. So if you recognise eyes that remind you of someone, or somebody you've seen before, or the features of the face, that type of thing, patterns. You're looking for a pattern. So if you let somebody will say, "He looks dead like you," and I'm looking at them going, "That's my daughter." No, she doesn't. You know what I mean? Whereas I don't see myself in my kids. Whereas other people say, they're the spitting image, and I'm sitting there thinking, I'm not seeing it. So somebody's recognising it, but they're recognising something that I've not. I can see their personalities in me, but I can't see their features. And if my daughters looked like me, poor girls.
Oh, indeed. The beard would be horrific.
I've just got my head on upside down. I'll have you know.
It's going down the way.
Aye, going down the way. But I thought it was a good conclusion. That's probably the best part of it. Was it was a nice conclusion to the first one, whereas it closed the loop. So they didn't leave it open, so later on they might have to go backwards and forwards to mess around with it. Because sometimes with programs, they leave it open and they never really close that loop. And I thought the fact is they did close it and they gave it a sort of satisfying closure.
Mm-hmm.
The way they got there with the cloning and the temporal stuff was a bit...
One thing I thought was quite nice was they set up... I mean, I know you didn't like Beverly as the character, but it was interesting that they kind of started to set up... Well, actually, it was good and bad. Good for the episode, bad for the season, I think, because they set up the bad guys. I think you later Consortium, yeah, you learned about them later. They set them up, but then this is where season one felt really weak for me. Is that they just never did anything with it. Like unless it was like they really had the 420 IQ play in terms of this is going to be something that we'll bring in next season, which they kind of do, but it'll be much further down the line. It felt very underutilized. I thought they could have maybe done just something else with that. But other than that, episode 2, really good.
Aye, it was not too bad. And then when we got into episode 3,
really like episode 3.
It was a fun Henry episode.
Yes,
there was a couple of things that I just thought raw. Like, for instance, the camera position. I'll show you what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Remember I mentioned about the camera position?
Mm.
Right. I'm just going to share my screen if I can get this done properly. I need to get OBS up and running. Right. I'll feed it in. Right, there. Right. You see his shirt? The top part.
Yeah.
Right. You see his shirt, the top part.
All right.
And she just goes, good, and there's the camera right behind it. No button. It's not connected to the button. It's not as if it's like one of these ones that's linked into the button and the button's the camera with a... It's just basically... There's no way on earth, right? And what it does is it shows... See the bottom one?
Yeah.
That's the picture from the camera. See the top one? That's what they were sitting watching. That's actually the part. All they did was they didn't even shoot it from a different camera angle, lower down or whatever. It's just, it seemed a case of it was a lazy bit to do. This is how it was done. Why not have a pen? It would have been easier because you get those wee spy pens, and it would have been a bit more clever because that way the eye level would have been fine because it's just like low and nothing blocking it.
But you wouldn't have been able to then have the whole reveal and surprise. We've recorded the whole thing.
Yes, but it's just... I just thought it was a wee bit clumsy because there isn't even a bit that you could see. Aye, but the thing is, she could have just taken the pen out and went, like Henry did later on with the...
That's true.
The Blink episode where he did that. That's the type of thing, because they are smart, so...
No,
I camera on and covering it, and then actually managed to see through the through the cloth.
That,
I wouldn't actually want to be get filmed by her again.
Well, that is something that is a pet peeve, I must admit, when they just take a picture of the
screen and actually they from the camera and they've done it and they've no changed the camera angles and stuff like that.
Yeah, for 1 second of seeing it, I can let that slide and not affect my enjoyment. But I must admit, it is something I do notice. Like when you just see the same scene over again on the thing. Plus, why is it black and white? It's like, surely there might be maybe they did that to try and make it look different. I bet that's what it was.
That's more likely what it was, because the screen was just a wee LED or whatever. But I thought the episode on the whole was really good.
I loved it. I thought
it's a Henry-centric one. It was about Henry and his ex-girlfriend.
Well, no, not really. That's the whole point. So
that's the whole point. Was it his ex-girlfriend or was it just somebody?
His potential love to have been, the love that it was. And what I liked about the episode was it really, I guess it maybe took Eureka and put it on its head, because like the actual, it wasn't just a light comedy anymore. It was like really dark. It's like you had your entire life literally stolen. And that, when you really examine that, and if you stop to think about it, it's like, wow, that's pretty dark actually. What he did to her, in terms of like erasing her memory, that's like almost, I can't think of anything worse you could do to another person, in terms of you've wiped out their memories and stolen their entire life and made them and convinced them that they love you, when actually the person they really love is over here.
And it reminds me of Groundhog Day.
Yeah, a wee bit, yeah.
Remember about where he would go up and they would do something and she would actually slap him and say, right, remember, she doesn't like that. Then the next day would show you again. Then the next day they would show you a different way until he got that. To me is what it's like. It's almost a case of, I really like chocolate. Chocolate's disgusting. Flash. I really hate chocolate. Oh, so do I. It's that. How often did they do that until he actually said the right thing to get the... I suppose it's a sort of kidnapping of the mind.
Oh yeah.
It's manipulation at its darkest, yes.
Oh yeah. Definitely.
But then again, they actually didn't hide the fact it was manipulation at the darkest, because you didn't know right up to the point she says, well, I wouldn't have killed him. Because even though, as she said, he might have stolen it, but I couldn't do that because I'm a good person, he's not.
See, that episode, I actually really like. So it's Tamlin Tomita. I hope I've said that right.
She's really good. I must
brilliant actress, really brilliant. And I actually hoped that she was going to be in a lot of the other.
So
episodes.
did I. I thought her and Henry would have been really good together.
That'd be so good. I don't know why they didn't do that. I don't
know why. They obviously had to give.
They had so many other actors.
But I think
that's that. I mean, I think that would have been the problem, right? To develop Henry needs screen time. So Henry is obviously he is one of the main characters. Yeah.
Aye.
If you introduce Tamlin and Henry, suddenly you need screen time for Tamlin, because you can't just have Henry
her as a back part.
Yeah, you can't just have her. She needs to have a story as well. And then, I think last week I counted it up, but I can't remember. It was like, I think there's a good 7. Oh yeah, how many main characters are there? So there's Jack, Zoe, Joe, Stark, Allison. Actually, why don't I just go to IMDb? That's pretty.
You've got Jack, Jim, Henry, Joe, Allison, Zoe. You've got the twins, who are no main characters, but they pop up. They're regular characters. You have what do you call him? The guy I don't like.
Oh, Fargo. Yeah, so
Fargo.
You've got Jack, Allison, Henry,
2, 4, 6,
Nathan, Lupo, Beverly, Kim. Oh, she's not a main.
So you've got about 8.
Jason Anderson. Yeah, Jason. Who's Jason Anderson?
Well, you've got Jack, Jim, Henry, Joe, Allison, Zoe. You've got the one Stark, and then you've got the guy who does the cafe.
Yeah, Vincent. Yep.
Vincent. So they're basically ones that are in every episode, and that's 8. And if they brought her in 9, so you're talking about at least 8. So it could have been bringing her in would have been 9.
Yeah, so that I mean that's a huge amount of characters. I mean, if you compare that to Stargate, for example, which was I think it was a much bigger budgeted show. Well, definitely.
You had 5 main characters, 6
5.
maybe.
Yeah. So they Eureka, I think, was pushing it a bit with that. It would be, I think maybe that's kind of what undone them a wee bit, was that so Eureka was ultimately cancelled because it was too expensive to keep going. It wasn't that it was unpopular. In fact, it was Sci-Fi's or Sci-Fi's most popular show at the time it was on TV. But the reason they cancelled it is because when the new executives took over, they looked at the profit loss margin and they could see that it was just too expensive. And part of what I think, one of the reasons I think it was cancelled ultimately was because the cast was a bit big. But also, something else I noticed as I've been watching back over the show in the last couple of weeks is the number of props that they had and stages and sets.
And reusing of the props.
Yes, I'm reusing the props as well. But it's incredible. I think if you watch like 10 minutes of Eureka, you'll probably end up seeing like maybe 2 or 3 whole different sets, outside sets as well. Oh yeah, you'll see outside sets. You'll see probably hundreds of props in an episode, and all these cost huge amounts of money. I mean, even just the vehicles themselves. You've got the sheriff's jeep, and then you've got Henry's truck. So they're custom vehicles, right? That had to be fully made and operational, all that kind of stuff. And then you've got the other vehicles you see kicking about. It's a very expensive show to run. So ultimately, I think that's why it was cancelled. But one thing I did like about that, and I think that's why maybe Eureka stuck out for me, was that they did use a lot of props, real props, physical props, not just CG.
Well, I said about the guns, remember I says that I thought they reused them from Men in Black.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
They didn't. It's very similar. See the one where it looked like a triple barrel. It looks like the double barrel, but the 2. The Men in Black, Will Smith's got it and he holds it up. It's just a similar shape. Similar look to it, but it is not the same one. I thought it was literally just took a prop from somewhere else, because that happens. You see programs like Star Trek, the original series, there's certain props in that. If you look at other shows, even the Next Generation, they used the same props. They just redid them.
Oh yeah.
The transporter pad in Star Trek. In Star Trek, all they did was they turned it upside down. So the bits that were at the top were now at the bottom. And right? The Next Generation.
Okay.
So basically stuff like that they did.
No, I didn't want to say no last week because I was being very surprised. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think Men in Black was Warner Brothers.
More likely, but I just thought it was it's like a lot of these shows, it's a case of how much is it going to cost us to do a prop? Okay, what are you selling your prop for? That type of thing. I just thought it was a general warehouse. They could have actually gone to somebody who does props and just purchased the prop or rented the prop, as it were. That's what I thought initially. But it's completely different. It's similar looking, but that's it. It's a similarity as in a 3-barrel gun looks like another 3-barrel gun. So let's say I got a shotgun and it looks like another shotgun.
Oh, yeah. No, I think it was being inspired by it, definitely.
But it just reminded me of it, and I did go back and watch Men in Black just to actually double check it out, and the two of them were completely different, apart from the similar shape, and that was it. Triple barrel.
That makes sense. So, yeah, highlight for me on that episode was, I like the fact that Henry and Kim get back together. That was really nice. It fills you with hope that they are going to do something with that.
Yes, and also the fact that she basically didn't try and kill, so they didn't need to hide, or there's a bit of moral ambiguity there. It was a case of, I wouldn't have done it. I would have just made it so he banged him up a bit.
I do think it was interesting though that at the end of that episode they have effectively made a vest that is a force. Like they made
it's bulletproof. Yes, it might not have actually protected you from fire, but really, if you got a choice, that or that basically is nothing. But that one will stop the bullets. It will not do anything with flames. No problem. I'll take that. Thank you very much.
They actually fixed that. They fixed that bug actually, because then at the end of it, because I think that's what Henry came in and did. So Henry actually fixes it, and then he obviously wipes the memory, comes in and finishes the formula, and then that's it. So what I don't understand is they've just made this super advanced piece of technology. Why do we never see it again? Why aren't all their security staff wearing it? It's so good, But well, you can't have.
But then again, their security always bugged me the bit where they go down to section 5 and there's this guy standing in a room, probably no bigger than this, with a big 45 cal machine gun pointing at the door, and you're sitting there thinking, the teeny room. It's not as if he's standing at the end of a corridor with a 45 caliber machine gun and getting anybody that's coming down that corridor. He's standing in a room pointing at a door.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there thinking, it's a bit big for that wee teeny room. You'd have been better having...
That's a good point, actually, because his reaction time would obviously be... Would you be able to react enough to actually...
Even if he's standing like that and somebody belts on the door, runs past the barrel.
And then he doesn't have a gun anymore because he's only got this big fixed emplacement. Yeah,
exactly.
I think I was going for the it's very, very secure.
It's very secure. I know. It seemed a wee bit silly with the with the 45 cal. If they had actually had it that there was the lift and then there was maybe a 40-yard corridor and he was at the end of the corridor, then it doesn't matter who comes out that lift. That's the only way in and out. Mind you,
it could have also been to keep whatever was inside.
But it was always pointing away from the door.
That's what I mean. So if it was pointing away from the door, it's maybe to keep the artifact inside because they don't know what the artifact is. Actually, Muffin makes a good point. It would be very interesting to do like a cost per minute analysis, because if you think, like, I know for a fact Stargate's cost per minute is probably relatively low when they're outside, because if you think about it, what do? They usually go to a quarry in Canada somewhere and then film people running about and a couple of explosions going off. You look at Eureka, well, they built an entire town, well, like all the fronts. So they've got all the fronts. Then they've got GD, they must have built the set for that, the big glass display. They've got the artifact room, they've got all the labs and all that kind of stuff. So I think if you were to do a cost analysis comparing that with that, no, it's a good idea though.
But there's also the aspect of it when you look at it. Then a lot of them, you look like SG1, right? The corridors they only really need a right angle or a T junction, because filming from here you can have a right turn, filming from there you can have a left turn, filming from here you can have a T junction, filming from there it's just a corridor. No, so on that. So they only need that T junction. It's like Alien. You just need to turn wee bits and pieces. Whereas in that, you had... Yes, they were filming in a town. So filming in a town, they don't necessarily build a town. They just film in front of it. But they're still... You're renting the town. You're upheaving everybody's life and stuff like that. But I guess it's the scenery and the big building. There's the artifact corridor, which is not... If it was similar to another corridor they use, but they only use it for the artifact.
Yeah.
And in the room with the glass, yes, downstairs they might make that into some of the labs because you only see it from above, you don't see it from below. So, but I think they must have had to initially do a bit of a decent amount of outlay.
Oh yeah, for sure. But I guess they were wanting to be one of their main earners. Anyway, overall, really liked the episode. Glad to get back together at the end. And very interestingly, the memory device, if you've not seen season 2 yet, comes back into play.
Good. I was going to actually say that. It seemed to be anytime they do a bit of technology, it disappears. It's almost like they forgot it.
It does come back.
Aye.
I am going to bow out just for a second.
No problem. Because I'm going to actually talk about one of my favourite episodes.
Very good then.
Right, so give me 2 seconds and I'll actually just put it onto me. Well, Gordon's away at the moment. But one of my favourite episodes was Alienated. I thought initially it was going to be very trope-like. They're sitting watching a TV show, they've hijacked a satellite for it, and then the next morning they wake up, and when you think he's been kidnapped basically because they see the light, I thought that's going to be tropish, as in it's a helicopter. But then you see the crop circle and they're acting weird as what's happened. They sort of don't just throw you in there. It's sort of a slow build-up of it. But as soon as they brought the chimps in, I had a rough idea what was going on. So I liked that aspect of it, and I thought it was actually quite interesting, the fact that the guy who, another person from Stargate was in it, the one that played Nareem, the Tolan, he was in it. He played the congressman who they believed to be the alien commander, who wasn't an alien, if you know what I mean. It's really remember. Yeah, I quite enjoyed it because I suppose I've always been a UFO buff. I do like the conspiracy, alien, Ancient Aliens, the TV show. I know it's a load of rubbish, but I do enjoy watching it, and I do enjoy that aspect of it. So the crop circles, the part, they all seem to actually be controlled, because it sort of lent it to the fact is, was the congressman an alien because you saw the bits in his face, or was it them who were being controlled, or was it just something else that happened? They could leave it both ways because they were acting strange and they seem to be ganging up. So, right, Gordon, you all ready? You just give me a shout. Right. Oops. And messed that one up. But I was just saying that I like that aspect of it because initially you didn't know if the congressman was the alien, they were turned into aliens, or something else had happened, because it was a slow build out for that one. Because I thought the light initially it was tropish, as in that's going to be a helicopter, but then they actually started acting weird, and then you see him doing the crop circles and the bits and pieces. I quite enjoyed it because that's what I'm saying. That I'm a UFO buff. I do watch things like Ancient Aliens and stuff like that. I know aspects of it are just crazy, but I just like the idea. People say I don't believe in aliens or I believe in aliens. I just say I'm willing to believe if you can prove it to me. But I do like the conspiracy aspects of the alien stuff, and that's why I like those type of movies. And so that one I quite enjoyed for it. I quite enjoyed it because it played into the, are they an alien, or is he an alien, or is something else happening? Obviously, it turns around the satellite they hijacked was oopsie-daisy. It's not exactly what we thought was happening, but I thought it was, on the whole, was actually a very good one.
I enjoyed the episode. I wish it's one of those ones, because obviously Spencer is the guy that is rolling the crop circles, and Spencer is one of those characters I always wished they'd just gone further with, because I thought, here's this guy who's obviously meant to be brilliant. He's Henry's assistant, and wouldn't it have been really cool to see him, I don't know, just develop more as a character? Because I was always disappointed that they got rid of him. Again, it falls under we've got so many characters, we've got to cut back a wee bit. But I when I was watching it initially, I guess that was always a wish that would have gone with that.
Yes, I remember one thing you said last week, and I says I didn't agree with you with it, was the brains. You said it's all the best of the best in this town. And I says, no. I remembered why, and I'll tell you about it at the time. But yes, he seemed to be the one that was a bit... He was the assistant, but he sort of... Initially, when he came out, it was a bit of a, do this, Henry, do that, as if I'm doing the legwork. And then it was a... You remember, Philip, the...
Liquid nitrogen, I think it was.
Oh, Henry done! It's because it's not just a case of he's just shutting windows, cleaning, answering the phone. He's actually doing stuff. Yeah. And yes, it sort of sneaked in there. And I quite liked, but I did like this one all in all, just for the simple fact is, but I thought the way they ended it, I didn't like that. The abduction trope with a helicopter, yes, no problem. The fact that Fargo was quite heavily in this one, didn't like it at all. Didn't like his aspect of it. Yes, they did the silly bits like who gave him a gun because it went off because he doesn't know how to use a gun. But it was the fact to see what in there. These are all meant to be hyper paranoid.
Yeah.
But he managed to talk them down like that, no problem. And then when they all walk out, all quite calm, and he goes, are they okay? He says, oh no, they're batshit, get them handcuffed and thing. And you're sitting there thinking, what he said there, did they really match in how he walked in and managed to talk them down?
I thought that was hilarious. So did you know? I thought that was one of the funniest lines of this the whole episode was when he said, "No, cuff them now, they're batshit crazy." But I was just in bits laughing at that.
Yeah, I quite liked that aspect, but the fact that the way he talked them down didn't imply they were batshit crazy because he used sane arguments. So then coming out and saying, "No, they're batshit crazy," it just didn't tie. And I think it's because the way he managed to talk them down. If they were batshit crazy and he actually went down the route of being just as batshit crazy, listen, we'll do this, we'll get out, we'll let them think they've got us, we'll let them talk it down, then we'll get in, then go out and say they're batshit crazy, that would have worked a bit better. But because he used...
I think he said bug nut, didn't he?
Bug nut. I didn't say batshit because that bug nut was crazy. But you knew what he was aiming at.
You knew it was... Sure, they could have said batshit all the way.
But the fact is, I think because the way he talked him down, it was quite contrived and he used too much logic for that comment to hit home as well. I think if he'd gone in and they were bat nut crazy and they actually talked about it like that and they basically used this big scheme to get them to pretend and do this and not do that, and we'll use this thing to make them forget. Can you remember what we just did? Who are you? He could have actually sort of hinted at it so the congressman, intelligent enough, he would have been able to make them pretend that, what am I doing here? What happened? That type of thing. He could have actually made it as if we've been given this by the commander so we can we can actually find these guys. We've got him under our control now. And we can work out and find out who else is in the town has done it, and acted like a nut as well to talk them down. Yeah. Then say it would have been a bit more like me, but he just seemed to use logic and managed to talk them down. Then he turns around and says they're bat nut crazy. It just the two of them didn't match.
He plays on their, I think, if I remember rightly, he plays on their fears or which is like the outsider.
He did initially. That's when it went. He says, "I'm. It's not him. It's me because I'm the new guy."
Yeah.
But then he started using logic, like for instance, would this happen and that happen? Or is it more logical you did this or that? So he's using logic to distinguish. So he just gets him to stop looking at him and look at. So ignore the congressman. Me. I'm the one you want. Then he starts using logic on them. Then he goes out and says they're bat nut crazy, and that's what I mean. It just seemed a bit contrived because it just didn't match. I think if he'd done something stupid to make them do like that, I think it would have been actually funnier. That punchline would have actually hit, as in, fucking, you're not kidding, because you said to see what I did to get there. but it just used that. But as McPuffin was saying, I was telling him I had like the UFO stuff and I had the conspiracy theories. I don't believe it, but I like it. And it is true. You don't need to believe it. You like the idea. It's
sure. Yeah.
I enjoy the fiction of it, I suppose is right.
What do you mean fiction?
Sorry, did that no tell you? I need to go home. Beat me up. But I like that because of that. I do like the UFO conspiracy stuff, and it did play into the why I enjoyed it. And watching it the second time and then the third time just made it funnier. So it did.
Fair.
Right. And then that takes us on to one of your favourites.
Yeah, I really liked episode 5. So that's Invincible.
Invincible, yeah. With Saul Rubnik, Artie Nielsen from Warehouse 13, but he didn't play Artie Nielsen in this.
No, he plays a different character. Same actor, obviously. Different characters between the two shows. And I really like it. You know, it starts off with him basically having an accident in his lab.
A germaphobe, paranoid, everything.
All that kind of stuff. And he's obviously brilliant in terms of, well, somewhat. He's obviously somewhat brilliant, but he lives in his own little world and he expects, like Jack to just basically ferry him around. And it's like, what I love about the whole thing is that he's so absorbed, he doesn't understand why it's weird that he doesn't understand why it's a problem that he's phoned the sheriff to give him a lift. Like, totally. What? Well, why wouldn't you give me a lift? You're the sheriff. I phoned you to give me a lift. I think that's quite funny.
I think so as well. I think but see, that Saul Rubnik is really good because he is, because you remember him in Next Generation. He played the Collector. Remember the one he got data? He collected data and told Data if he didn't sit in the seat, he would shoot somebody else with the.
Right.
Although he had to actually fill in that place because the person they got to do it actually passed away, killed himself. It was the wee guy. It was in the Time Bandits. I can't remember his name. It was the main character in the Time Bandits. You had the wee boy, and then you had.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So, but Saul Rubnik actually did the Collector, and I thought he was really good in that because he had just that bit as a Weasley. So it just goes to show how well he can act because he was a germaphobe in that. He was this smart arse, brainy guy in Warehouse 13. He was this Weasley. I'll do what I want because I've got the power and thingy to do it, and you'll do what I tell you, but don't hurt me. That type of thing.
I've not actually seen that episode of Star Trek. I'll have to make a point of going and look at that. And
then McPuffin is right. Warehouse 13 and Eureka are set in the same universe. There has been a couple of crossovers.
Yeah, there were. So there's, I think, 2 episodes where they cross over.
I think one when Fargo goes to Warehouse 13 and another one when Zoe goes to Eureka.
And McPuffin, you are correct. There was a third series. It's just the name's just escaped me at the moment. Or a third thing set in the same universe. But I forgot what it was at the moment.
I think we were talking about that, and I thought it was something like Erie, Indiana, which has got absolutely nothing to do with it. But were you not thinking it was to do with Eureka? It was the something like something like that. I can't remember.
So Eureka, I remember actually. I'd actually got the name of it last.
It was a web series. It was a web series.
Was it? No, there was a web series of Eureka, which kind of tried to, I don't know if wrap up is the right word, but it was like the final season. But no, there was definitely there was a third thing that shared the same universe. And I think Sci-Fi's vision for it was a bit like, almost in some ways, a bit like the forerunner for the Marvel stuff.
There was so many things.
I think what they were maybe leading towards would have been like exactly what they did with I won't say Marvel because that's a much bigger picture, but more like what they've done with DC stuff. So you know how you've got like Superwoman, Green Arrow, Flash, all those kind of things, and then they've all had their own season, and then they've had like a 5-episode special crossover where they all came together, and each had their own episode within the season. So I think like Flash had their episode, Supergirl had her episode, and whatnot. But the 5 episodes together come together to form like I've actually got on DVD. It was called the oh dang, Sanctuary. Oh yeah, that's
Sanctuary.
Is that the same?
No, Sanctuary is the one with Amanda Tappen. That I didn't think that was in the same universe as Warehouse 13, but it is absolutely an absolutely fantastic. McGuffin, have you actually seen it? It was superb. Amanda Tappen is just perfect in it. I did love that series. I've been trying to get Gordon to watch it, but I know the Eureka and the Series 4 and Warehouse 13 Series 3 did a swap over. But I'm trying to. I can't see anything else that actually mentions it, but I do. Sanctuary is one of my favourites. I watched that about 3 or 4 times, and that is another really good season that you need to definitely see, Gordon. I know you've not seen that.
Not yet, but it's definitely on the watch list. Yeah, no, it's definitely on the watch list to go and see.
Definitely.
I see the time is now 9 o'clock, and we're barely halfway through the series. So
we'll fly through the rest because we can highlight the parts. Knowing fine well it is actually first run through. It's okay. Second run through, there's a few episodes that are still Third run through, I did start to appreciate it more. So that's probably why we're talking about it more. But what we'll do is you can look at the Warehouse 13 because it was the Wikipedia list we saw on. So
I've seen both crossover episodes actually. So I actually watched the Warehouse episodes and the episodes.
I have seen the Warehouse episode, but I haven't seen the Eureka one because I hadn't watched Eureka. But there you go. You definitely need to see it. It's a great show, Sanctuary.
I was just going to say, so episode 5, the highlight is that they fall from the bridge. I like that scene. I think that's quite hilarious.
Yes, and the fact that he's cleaning it all before he climbs over it, I found hilarious. It's funny. The bit I quite liked about the whole thing is obviously they're falling, and I don't know, but to me that looks like actual stunt persons or stuntmen doing the fall from the bridge. So I presume they're doing like the classic onto the big airbag or something. I would assume so.
But again, it's like it's one of those things. They could easily. That's a scene that could easily have been done with CG or green screened or whatever, right?
Green screen, yes.
But they actually did the physical, stunt, which again is just going to add more cost, but again made it look much better.
I think so. The only thing I didn't like about that episode was the weird kiss and I just thought it was just weird. It just seemed out of. Yes, he sort of thought she liked him more than that, but you're sitting there thinking he's smart, really. But people actually just get signals crossed and all that. But it just seemed the fact that she just knew to go slap. That was the weird part. It just seemed weird.
I read that as he had become really confident. Obviously, as his intelligence had exponentially gone through the roof, his confidence has increased. And I suppose you could even argue that maybe because he began to read minds as well, maybe he had picked up some sort of cue that
No, because before that, it was after that because he went to see her to apologise, and then he realised that he could read minds, and that's when he was thinking. But when in the restaurant, it was just
he was building up to that as well. It's like you wouldn't just go, I can read minds and totally understand it. He maybe picked up on some cue, but I genuinely think it was just he just becomes so confident in his ability. He just thought, I can kiss this woman, like it's no problem at all. And you know, I've met guys that genuinely believe that. I mean, whether or not they can get away with it, but their confidence is so high. It's like, yeah, I can kiss this woman. It's totally fine. I mean, they're nuts, right? But
I liked the episode. It was only that was the one part I just thought was a bit. There was no reason. I suppose.
Well, I mean, the whole reason for it is that he's had a lot of things he's not done because he's been held back by his.
And he's saying, I understand that aspect of it. Just the kiss just seemed weird for that because it was almost a case of, yes, he was still meant to be this nice guy, and he wasn't going to stab, although he implied that he was going to, but he was to show, and then.
Yeah.
It went that way. You know what I mean? It just seemed weird.
I was going to say the second bit I quite liked about the bridge fall was again it was another Carter practical practical stunt where he's lying on top of him and he just pushes him up and Carter's like totally out and there's no like he's not trying to look cool like some actors like when they do a prop and they're meant to be unconscious, they're like, oh yeah, it's like they still look good, right? Carter, Jack Ferguson has no qualms about this. He just looks like, and he just falls over and he just flumps unceremoniously to the side. And again, even just that, I find hilarious. It just looks so funny.
I quite enjoyed it, I must admit. It's just the only part I found a bit was the kiss part. I just found it weird. Okay. It just seemed out of place for someone who's meant to be a bit smart. But the fact that he had the accident and he becomes invincible, so he basically can still get injured, but it heals quickly. I think that's it. I think it's just everything heals, so he's no longer scared of germs. And
well, he can use his brain. That's what. And he can use his brain to heal himself.
You don't know initially what it is, but it turns out the artifact has caused an issue, and then it's his brain, and they reckon it's as we evolve, your brain will start doing more of the work to heal you.
Again, that's something else I really wish they'd brought back or written in. Is like he just disappears into the artifact. Like so.
The thing is, I thought they were going to do that sometime down the line.
That's what I mean. That's exactly my point. I thought. That would have been such a good thing to bring back because it's like you set him up as like he has now basically got all the intelligence of the world. Like that's that's the whole theory of the artifact, the Akashic field and all that kind of stuff. And he is now meant to be one with that. That would have been so cool to have him come back, even like I don't know, just for a single episode or.
I thought he did the very last episode.
Episode 5, season 5.
No, season 1.
No,
initially I thought he'd come back. We'll talk about it when we get there.
Oh, once in a lifetime. Right. No.
Once a
that would be great to have him come back there. Yeah. Them armbands from SG1.
That was the armbands that they clicked on, and it was once they found on a world that had been depopulated, that basically everybody had died out. The armbands could only be used once by the people, so they used it until it ran out, then somebody else could get it, and it made them speed up. They could think faster, act faster, and stuff like that. It's just basically they were smarter, faster, stronger.
Yeah,
that one.
Yeah, I remember that. I vaguely remember that one. Yeah,
that was actually a really good episode, and it actually.
That's right. That's what.
Yeah. And that's what it does remind me of it now I'm thinking about it. But yes. But I thought it was quite good. I actually really liked that episode, but I think it was because Saul Rudnick actually sold it very well. The only thing I didn't like about it was the kiss. And I thought they would have brought him back, I must admit. But then again, I've only seen season 1, remember. Anyway, going to the next one, which is by and large my favourite, Dr. Nobel.
It's a great episode. So, the Fargo gets a promotion and he gets his own office, and this office is somewhere on, I think it's fourth
level.
Fourth level.
We in the back.
Yeah, it's like down in the industrial center, like where all the heating and all that stuff is. And they uncover this, like, well, what we later discover is a doomsday weapon.
What do you mean discovered? Who didn't actually see that and think?
Oh yeah, as soon as you saw the two key things, it's like, obviously this is like a dead man something, so, right?
But the thing is, these people are all meant to be intelligent, and they turn and go, "Oh, we've got keys, right? Ready? Turn them together. Click."
But I agree. It's a bit funny, but I guess that's setting up Fargo for Fargo, because he always pushes the button. Like season 2, there's an episode. It's like he gets the thing, he pushes the button, right? And in this season, or in this episode, they get the thing, they want to turn it on. I guess it's got Spencer in it, which is quite good, because I like seeing Spencer. I thought it'd be nice to have seen more of him as a character. And they turn the button. I can only presume they would never have imagined it would have been like a mad switch, you know? Or,
yes, but considering where they are, you think they would have enough nonce in their brain and to actually think, I wonder what this is. Let's check first before, we've got 2 keys. This key's not working. Is your key working? No. Right, okay, fiddle around. Oops, the 2 of them actually turned on at the same time and it's triggered it. It's not, they goes, we don't know what this is. Ready, turn. It was that aspect of it. It was a case of,
why would you leave the keys next to it as well? That's crazy. Why would you leave the keys next to it as well? That's bizarre.
But it's just the episode. I like the old boys. They were funny. They were just hilariously good. Very well done in them, because the dementia, they're constantly arguing about equations and stuff like that. They were humorous, but not taking the piss, as it were, because sometimes you get ones, he's a daughtery old man and all that. The only thing I didn't like was when they were walking down the corridor. It was like the space shuttle one. You always see the guys going down the corridor. The only thing I didn't like about it was the guy in the Zimmer.
Was he
basically, he was walking too fast with the Zimmer. It was a case of he was walking and the Zimmer was hardly touching. It just looked out of place. But if they had slowed that down so they were walking slower, I think it would have been funnier, because it was almost like the bit where you see the astronauts going down and there's a big long corridor and they're carrying all their equipment, and it's with the music in the background, the light in the background, the mist. It was sort of like that, but the guy with the Zimmer, so it just took me out a wee bit. But all in all, I did like them. They were fun.
Yeah, I like the premise that this guy had basically invented MAD, right? Or he was one of the guys on the team that invented MAD, which is a interesting historical thing in its own right. But he loses his mind when he doesn't win the Nobel Prize, you know, or
somebody won it for a second time.
Yeah, and then the thing that brings him back is they have to recreate what appears to be him getting the Nobel Prize, and that's what finally brings him out of his madness, I guess. And
I just loved the bit when they were actually up, and it's a case of the wheels on the bus go right. I was nodding myself at that part, and he was just singing it. And remember, I said sometimes they sort of take that joke and they sort of leave it a wee bit too long. I think they did that one perfectly, because they didn't stop after the first line and then, I get thingy. You just sort of get on, and you're sitting there thinking, I could see that happening. And it was funny, that aspect of it, because it was a case of he seems to have snapped out of it, and then he was still going again. And I thought he did it very well.
I think the way they filmed it seemed to almost suggest that he had sort of fallen back into it. But then that's when he sees, I think it's Madeline or Maybelline?
Aye, something like that, Madeline. Aye.
He sees
it was almost like Euphemia. It reminded me of Mrs. Doubtfire, Euphemia, but it was Euphemia.
Yeah, I know what you mean, actually. And I think you're right, and the name just escapes me. I'll load it up and I'll find out. But no, I like the fact that he's obviously talking about it, then he just switches to her, and then the whole thing just naturally forms, and it's like that's how he would have started the speech, because that's obviously why that's where he is in his head. He is constantly reliving the speech he should have given.
Yeah, because the bits where they're talking about. Do you know the only thing I didn't like about that as well was the time frame.
Oh, from going from the home to the place.
It just seemed a case of, because the two of them are
Eugenia.
aged. Eugenia. But the two of them are old, right? So how long ago did that happen? They were implying it was in the 60s, the end of the 60s.
But they would have been really, they would have been really young when they did it. So
yes, even if they were really young when they did it and what happened. So what age was he? Because she says they were about to be married. So the picture implied they were in their maybe early 20s.
Right. So and then it's 2009 in the show.
So you're talking about it's a good 42 years or 47 years. I think they mentioned 40 odd years ago.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So for 40 odd years, he's had that mental illness, mental breakdown. And for 40 years, she's not moved on.
Yeah, I buy that.
Nah. See, I can understand the aspect. It's not as if they were married. They weren't even married yet, or there was no proposal. So it just seemed 40 years. And then the way they were implying it only happened a few years, but the pitch, it just didn't tie in very well because no matter how you would think, sitting 40 years pining for someone
that's your fairy tale love, though. And that's I'm not saying if you stepped out in the real world that's what would happen, but I guess it's a fairy tale. It's
but she seemed upset because 40 years down the line and it's still he's still not looking at her, but it's not a case of it's that type of thing.
What I found unusual is the fact that they would both be in the same place.
Yes,
he clearly is not with it. Like, he needs help. And I don't mean that in an insult way. He's clearly needing a substantial help.
More care.
They're both more care. They're both living in the same home. So I don't know, maybe he's getting a lot more care, and it seems weird that they would both end up in the same place.
And there's another thing. Who built her wheelchair? He did. She implied that he did. He souped it up.
No, Henry souped up. No, I remember that.
Did she say Henry? I thought she said he did.
No, it's Henry. Henry souped up the wheelchair. I think there was a line or something. I think she was speaking to Zoe at the time, and it's like, oh yeah, Henry souped up for me or something.
Was it Henry? I thought she said the guy's name. I thought that's who she said had souped up, and I thought, but maybe that's why I just got that brought into the mix, and it just didn't seem right. But if it was Henry, that makes a lot more sense.
Oh yeah. End of the episode. I'm a bit of a sucker for the whole hero sacrificing himself thing, and I quite enjoyed the fact that Carter smashed his car into this big lasery thing. Again, I suppose as long as you don't question it too much, it was fun.
Do you know the one part I didn't like about that? Right, Henry's gluten up, right?
Yeah.
And he's giving it he's sneaking around a wee bit as if that's going to make any difference at all. You see, he's sort of edging round her a wee touch. So you're talking about he's probably moved no more than that. Yeah, that's going to bring the moon into actually a better way to see it. Do you remember that? But he's just sort of going like that. Can you see it? He's leaning over, and I'm sitting there thinking, really? You're looking up at the moon, and you have to lean to the left a wee bit to see it clearer. I don't know. I like the aspect, like, for instance, it's all sorted and it's still ticking down and just goes, but this is continued. And then it starts all up again and it says, who cut the blue wire? I like that. Henry put his head down. That was it. I quite enjoyed it. I liked the old guys. I thought it was a fun episode. That was one of the other ones that I liked in the episode, I must admit. And apart from the two of them turning the key and me getting it mixed up with the Henry doing the chair, I thought it was him that did the chair. So that takes a bit out, so it makes it a bit more understandable because it implied that they were together late. They were together until later and then he lost it. Whereas obviously it's meant to have been a lot earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So I just misheard that part. And then the next one was Blink.
I would say this reminds me more of that Stargate episode now that you mention it, because like you've obviously got these chemicals they're taking that give them superhuman speed, strength, power, thinking ability, and all that kind of stuff.
Well, this Shed, Stephanie, but no, this one it reminded me of. I think the two of them together, the Invincible, because it's the brain he's using it to do, but whereas the armbands not only gave them the speed, it gave them strength, more mental acuity and stuff like that. So I think the two of them together, it seemed to actually work. So yes, this one with the bands, although they put the thing in the eye, they seemed a wee bit careless with it, didn't they? They seemed a wee bit careless with it. Right. I can flick it over if you need to. You're on mute. Anyway, sorry about that. That aspect of it, I thought I quite enjoyed. The speed aspect of it, but I thought they actually could have been a bit better done because the eye drops, but they just leave it lying there as if they completely forget about it. And then the bug at Fargo next, and then it just seemed a wee bit weird in some aspects of it. They've got, it's a car accident, a scientist at Global is killed, and it looks like he's hit the car at some speed that it's literally demolished him. But because he's under Section 5, the body gets ripped away, but not before Henry can scan it. And then they reckon there's something in the blood that makes them speed up. And the way to find it is they reckon that to go that fast, you would be burning calories and need to eat a lot. So that's how they find the guys that do it. But in the meantime, the guys are actually doing it, and somebody else has got access to it. And it's a chemistry student who's made a version of it, and he's using it to help people cheat exams. And he's also using it to threaten Jack, because he's Zoe's new boyfriend. And there's also this sideline of Jack with the baseball team, which I did not like. The baseball game was dumb. The 3D thing. No, how could you actually go out and say you enjoy it? Then just the hitting of the ball, yes, I could understand, but being standing out in the field with the glasses on and actually pretending to catch the ball, I just thought was a bit weird. It's too dumb for me, that aspect of it. But the speed aspect was quite good. And yes, Fargo nicking it, but the fact that they left it lying around for him to steal just seemed weird. The fact that he managed to steal it and have to go through the bin to get it. And Gordon's coming back. Are you ready to come back in?
Yes, I am.
I was just saying, the baseball part, I thought was dumb, because yes, the baseball part of it, but the catching it, who would want to actually have a 3D just so they're standing there waiting to see if, and imagine the ball comes towards them, so they go like that and catch it. But that was the one part of the show I didn't like, was the baseball part. But I was saying about they left the drug lying around that Fargo could nick. I just thought was a wee bit silly.
I think that's where they were using it as well, though. I think because they're in the lab, and then I thought it was quite cool that Fargo sent them a fly and not into the recycling bin. I thought it was a bit weird though. For some reason, when he was in the recycling bin, he came out
saturated with paper.
Like when you just I don't know, open it and just start sifting through it rather than
dive in
and start swimming through everything. Because I'm pretty sure if you did that, you wouldn't be able to find it. I think if you'd sifted through it, but I guess it made for a funny reveal.
Yes,
as it opened up. It was like, yes, but the classic Eureka.
Aye, well, I did find that part. That's what I was saying. This is one of the few that I like Fargo in, and it was just the fact is they zip, 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 and then in the Eureka part as well. But the fact is, if they've got technology that they could fly in and spy on anybody, I'm sure that would be widely known by the government, and they wouldn't just have one lying around.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. I suppose that's the forerunner to modern day drones.
And the fact that it could actually push that thing. It's that small, nobody else could see it, but it is powerful enough to push a bottle, even a wee plastic bottle full of liquid, off the side. The fact that none of them noticed it, and the fact that they just left it lying there, I just thought was a wee bit silly. But on the whole, it was an okay episode. The subside part with the boyfriend doing illegal drugs to help people pass exams by helping them speed up so they could revise quicker, I just thought was a wee bit. Did you really need that when you had the murder, or did they murder him, or did they? It implies that the guy did murder him by tripping him up, and that's why he careered into the thing and went flying.
No,
they sort of suggested that.
Did they? I don't remember that.
They did suggest that if you look at that part where I think Henry was saying that all you need to do it's almost like you needed to do is stick out your foot, and that would be it. So I don't know if they were just discussing that maybe he's tripped, but it sort of implied. I thought they were implying that somebody tripped him when they were running.
Maybe. I know. I didn't get that. I didn't get that vibe when I watched it. I thought he had tripped too, because I think they said I think they said he tripped and fell or something like that, and that's why he died.
See, I think it was a bit when they were talking about tripping. It's almost like he says it's been tripped. I thought he says tripped because I'm sure he stuck his foot out because the speed he was going. That's it. Lost control.
Oh, okay. Maybe. Yeah. I mean, yeah, maybe. I can't remember that part of the episode though, but
it was just the one line. But then again,
I liked the end bit though when he throws the baseball and hits him in the face. That was quite funny.
Which I thought was silly as well, because by the time he's running towards him, he should have already hit him and run away based on the speeds they were going at. But as soon as he comes towards him, then he gives it there.
Yeah, the big slow wind up. It's like as well as
if I was standing with the ball and the guy was coming towards me, I'd have just done that and threw it rather than the big wind up, because the speed he was coming in at it should have actually killed him, taken his head off, because of the speed he was travelling in at.
Oh yeah, Muffin. Yeah, absolutely. That's. I mean that. I think that's that famous word we like to use as a trope. Even I was even watching season. Oh wait, which one? Yeah, season 2. He does the visor thing. Obviously, I won't give it away for Pete, but there's the visor thing, and yeah, exactly that kind of stuff happens. I always like to imagine that screenwriters, writers, and all that. I almost think that there's a standard catalog that they must learn in film school. So like there'll be so many episodes, like I can even see it, like they've got like a file in front of them and just flip through it and like, oh yeah, okay, so they wake up in the world, they think it's a world, but it's not really a world, and then they write off based on that. I almost think that's basically what a lot of them do, and I think the reason they do that is because they obviously they trial these episodes and they poll well. right? You know, and they're people's, like, for example, like the wristband thing is a favorite because it's like you're basically turning your favorite characters into superhumans, right? And everyone wants that. And so, like, you'll always find some sort of variant on that where
season two of Stargate, we watched it, the very last episode where they all woke up and it was meant to be the future, but it turns around Hathor's actually got them in thinking that they think it's the future and everybody else is dead except, you know what I mean? And that was it, trying to convince them it's the delusion.
It's
although the Buffy one was superb.
It's well tried and well done. I guess it depends on what mood you get me in. Like, so certain moods, I'll watch that and just think, oh, not again. You know, really, same thing again, guys. Come on, try to write something new for once.
Yeah,
but then
they did say there's only 7 stories in the world. Every story is a variation on the 7. Don't ask me what the 7 original stories are, but they say there's only 7 stories out there. So every time you see one, it's just a variation on one of them. Which is probably true because you can't tell an original story now. Because even an original story's got made up of other small stories.
That's true, but I think you could. Yeah, no, I agree. It's very difficult to tell a new story now, but at the same time, there's, I think, a bit of novel. Well, I suppose it depends what you try and do, right? You know, if you're making a show like Eureka or Bones or Smallville or something like that, you've got a very specific audience you're aiming for.
Yes.
And you're trying to be as broad as possible. You want to pull in as many people as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't, to do that, you have to give people what they like rather than what you want to tell them. And so that means you kind of have to fall back on the original these tropes, you know.
Yes, but they do some good ones, like, for instance, Buffy, the one where you had a few of them. You had the one where the wee short guy who made everybody had the delusion when you had Michael, the android guy, who was the only one that couldn't see it. So everybody thought he was a superhero. And then they had the one where they were all singing and stuff like that. It's that aspect of it. You have some really good fun ones. The Buffy one I thought was really fun. So I did. Stargate Atlantis, where Elizabeth is infected by nanites and she wakes up and has never gone to. That was quite a good one as well. The Stargate Atlantis one, you've seen Atlantis, haven't you?
Oh, yeah.
That was that was quite a good one, and also they had the fact that sometimes they had Carter and the robot, the replicator, get into her mind to make her think certain ways. Then you had the gatekeeper. Gamekeeper. That was a delusional one because they were in the plant. They were in the VR thing, and he tried to make them believe, so relive the same day over and over again.
It's interesting. I wonder. I guess you could look at what would be interesting actually. Now I don't know if it's been done, but if you could look at like the comparable episodes, so like take this episode from you, take that episode from Stargate, and look at the fan ratings, and to see if all those episodes kind of always poll around the same sort of level, and then all the episodes where you get like the heroes are all jacked up with superpowers and all that, all them kind of get rated around the same level. It'd be interesting to see how they compare. On IMDb, for example, it's like, they all get like all these type of episodes get like maybe 6 stars or something.
Well, I'm working from home, so I could probably have a wee look this week.
Absolutely. Anyway,
anyway, this one, the Blink one, I thought was actually okay, but the baseball was rubbish.
Well, fair play. What I was going to say is, if you're so fast and you can think so quickly, surely you could have just he could have dismantled that gun, put it back together in the blink of an eye, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Surely he could have went, click, safety off, bang, you're dead. Even if he pushed and did every single thing you could have done with that gun, I'm pretty sure he could have figured it out, given how fast he could move.
Well, you look at initially the first time when he writes the wall, it's and it's done. Whereas the next time you see him, he's going slower towards you. But to me, the easiest thing to do is, as I said, throw the ball up and he runs into it. He's going that fast. Do you know what I mean? Why have they slow pull back and boom? Just throw the ball.
It wouldn't have looked as good, I guess.
I know it wouldn't have.
Maybe that's how baseball players feel, right? Because we're talking about engineers and like you've got like how the army look and things like that. And well, you know, it's like maybe there's baseball players, like pitchers, that are looking at it and going, "What is he doing?" No, that's not how it would work in real life. You just throw the ball up or something. maybe that's what takes them out of it.
I suppose so. But the next episode I thought was one of the worst. Right as Rains. That's the one about the android.
Oh, I really liked that.
Oh no!
It was emotionally good.
Did you think the fact is things started happening dead quickly, and then they jumped to the conclusion it was Callister. It did it.
Well,
literally
going town.
You in town and things has happened, so it must have been him. He's introduced a virus,
and where he is as well. Because it was like, so it happened in Cafe Diem. That's why he was in Cafe Diem. That's why it went cold, started snowing. I think it was, well, actually, that's it.
But no, because they remember before he actually got into Cafe Diem, they were having problems with the lights in the street.
I was going to say the traffic lights, yeah.
So they were having, and they had mentioned other problems. But they seem to, he's new in the town, so it must be him. They seem to jump to the conclusion dead quickly. Nothing to do with the fact that Joe, he had a history with Joe or, what's his name? Stalker? What's the guy's name?
Callister. Oh, Stark.
But it did nothing to do with the fact that they had relationship. He had a relationship with both of them. But it was the fact is they seem to jump to the conclusion it was him very, very quickly.
But then they did look up his records, and it was suspected that he started the fire. I think that's when they really started to look at him.
Yeah, but they started looking at him for that. Because they had actually thought it was probably something to do with it. And then they started looking at it because he had a history with Joe as well. Because that's why they didn't bring it up about the fire and stuff like that about him. It just seemed to be very quickly jumped to that conclusion.
Possibly.
And the fact is the prodigal son returns and surprise, surprise. That's the very first time he's ever been injured?
I did like that. I did like the way the episode ended. Very emotional, like the fact that Stark has obviously had this bond. I like the premise of it, so it's like Stark builds this AI. One out of however many thousands of attempts happens to survive the process, and it's Callister. And what starts off as just a project, almost becomes Stark's pseudo son, in some ways. And ultimately to protect him, he sends him away because he knows if he stays, he will become a science experiment.
But the problem with that, it takes it out of other ones.
But there's no other what other experiment would you say that starts?
No experiments, as in just the way he acts. Later on, there's the one with Alison's son with the blackboard.
Yeah. No, but that you can explain that separately because that's because of his connection to the artifact. So there Stark has two very different. That in some ways that's what makes the character so interesting. Is you've got here's the artifact, right, and he's obsessed with that, and then here's Kevin. He obviously loves Kevin, being Ali's son, and yet they've got the two. They're almost at loggerheads because, again, I won't say too much about it, but in season 2, there's points where those two really come to head.
But it was the one with episode 2, the conclusion. They got her son to try and solve the problem.
Yeah,
and he seemed quite dismissive, as if I actually tell a lie. That was actually the other guy. It was the other guy. Because it was episode 1. It was the other guy. It was in charge. That was the in it at the point. So that takes it right out because I thought he was quite dismissive about don't want to actually do that where he's meant to have had a relationship with that he was his prodigal son, as it were.
Hmm.
But it takes out because it was a different guy.
Actually, it's that the whole Alison Stark thing is interesting because presume they were married. In fact, they were married. They technically only divorced later on in season 2. I think.
No, they're still married. There's basically he was handed the papers at some point in season 1. I can't remember exactly when.
I'm just trying to think of. I can't remember, but there must be an episode. I won't say why, but there
is an episode. It's the one with Primal. It's the next episode is when she hands him the papers.
I don't. Does he? Oh, he does sign it. He does sign it. That's right. He does sign them. That's right. He does. Because I seem to remember him not signing it in the episode, but I think he does at the end. He does sign them. Oh, well, that makes sense. But anyway, that what's interesting about that is because that means that Kevin would have been his stepson.
Stepson, yeah.
Which obviously ramps up the relationship there as well. But no, I thought I liked that episode because it shows Stark has a human side, and it shows that he's got a much he's not just purely driven by the artifact, because that's what it sets off right from the start. Is like he's really driven by the artifact. He's got to find it out. You don't really see much of a relationship between him and Kevin. There's a bit of a relationship between him and Ali, but then not much else. But then Callister here, basically, when he dies at the end of the episode, you can see that he's really affected by that, which I think was very nice. I thought it was
but I just thought there was one or two bits that just didn't ring with us, and that was as soon as he turned up, blaming him, and then what? What did they do? Did they dispose of the body? Dump it down a well? What? Because they don't want to actually hand it back in.
What body? Oh, do you mean
Callister? He's
so.
a robot, so they can't put him through for an autopsy.
Oh no! I mean, come on, it's Stark. He's the head of GD. He would just be like, no, like it's just hush hush, and he bury him or something. I'd imagine they buried him or cremated him. If you want to think about the storyline in those terms, I think that's what would happen. Probably cremation, actually. That'd been quite fit, given that he used to start fires. So,
but it's just a weird one. I was thinking about. It just seemed, but
anyway, I am going to have to call it a night, I'm afraid, my friend, because we've gone on quite some time.
No problem. Do you want us to finish off next week, season 1 and 2? We'll just fly through the season 1 at the end.
Yeah.
And Puffin McMuffin will be here next week at 8 o'clock. Well, 7, half 7? 7, half 7?
We'll say half 7.
Half 7. And you're more than welcome to join us.
Again, for our blethering and rambling. And
yes.
That's Scottish for talking a bunch of shite, basically. So
yeah,
you're more than welcome to come back, please.
Yes, definitely. And so we'll start with Primal next week, and we'll fly through the final season 1, and we will do season 2. But season 2 starts to get longer because there's more than 12 episodes.
Indeed, there is. Yeah.
Because I remember Stargate season 2. It took us 3 things just to get through one season. Yeah. Although season 2, part 3 was my highest one for this month.
Oh, right. Okay, that's cool.
For this month. So season 1, part 1 and part 3. Part 2 was the one with the Echo. That one it's still got a high number of views, but it's a lot lower than the other 2. Nice. But part 3 was the higher. So getting there. Whole 9 subscribers. Yay, getting there, building up.
You got to start somewhere, Pete. As I said, once you get to those 10 subscribers, I'm sure Nerderotic will be hammering on your door looking to do co-op screams with you. And inviting you onto the show.
It's only because my room's almost as good as his. Well, at the moment, my room's better than his.
Actually, I was going to say, I always thought your room was a bit nicer than his, because his is almost too crammed. You can't see.
Aye, but Corley's room's bigger now. He's got a bigger room, and he's not getting up yet. But he's waiting. Once he gets his corkboard, he'll be putting it out and making it's a lot bigger.
Oh, that's cool.
Because he had his stand right there, and it seemed to be right next to him. And whereas I have got space to swing a cat, so
Yeah, or a dog.
I prefer mine, in all fairness.
Well, that's fair. That's understandable.
Well, it took me 50 years to actually get one, so definitely.
Hopefully, in the next couple of years, I'll maybe be able to.
Oh, you're building yours. You're building yours.
Well, eventually, yes.
Aye. Just about getting. It's just getting the time and getting the overall the workload. Remember, my workload is a computer nowadays. I no longer have to do the programming and I still got the paperwork, but basically everything's on a laptop now, so I don't need to have a base unit, screen, keyboard, mouse taking up most of my desk. I've got a laptop. Fair enough, I've got a keyboard and a mouse because I want them, but in effect, everything's cut down for me, so I've got the space to do what I want.
I'm the opposite, though. That's my problem. I've got all my electronic stuff that I like to play with, so I've got an oscilloscope, my frequency signal generators, multiple. I've got my blooming soldering iron sat on top of my signal generator, so it's all just
ideal.
All accumulates. Anyway, right, I'm going to go and get my dinner.
Definitely.
Puffin McMuffin. My apologies. Thank you for watching, and
thank you for watching. And yes, enjoy the Stargate season 1. That was me rambling on my own. And next week we'll hopefully finish season 1, and season 2 we'll try and not actually gab as much. But there you go. And if you'd like it, give it a thumbs up. And you've already subscribed, and thank you very much. So Gordon, thanks again for another fun night, and look forward to it again. And I'll maybe speak to you Tuesday.
Yes, or maybe get a wee game of Magic or something on Tuesday. That'd be awesome.
Definitely.
All right, mate.
Okay. Thanks again. And remember, people, I'm not old, I'm classic. And PGA may be out.